The 8-bit generation wasn't exactly known for its abundance of horror titles. Sure, there's plenty of platformers with classic monster themes, but the heart-pounding fight or flight for your life adventure mechanics didn't establish itself as the survival horror genre until 3D polygons were, well, a thing. The closest scary game the NES had to offer was Friday the 13th, in which Japanese developer Atlus asked, how many children could a simple camp counselor with no sense of direction save from the relentless homicidal psychopath Jason Voorhees? Hint, not many. Not to forget the NES port of the Apple II Mac adventure title, Uninvited, an atmospherically creepy point-and-click where you hunt for your lost sister in a pissed-off haunted house, hell-bent on killing you again, and again, and again. But what hardcore Resident Evil fans already know is that the genre's inception actually began with the Famicom movie tie-in RPG, Sweet Home. In fact, Resident Evil started early development as a full-on remake of Capcom's not-so-hidden gem. And although the project was re-envisioned as a totally new IP, the direct influences are fairly apparent in the final release. Both games revolve around a team of investigators as they fight their way through a labyrinthian mansion teeming with horrifying abominations. Progress is made only through the proper pairing of artifacts to environmental obstacles, and in both titles, inventory management is crucial to your success. Alright, so the similarities are coincidental at best, but after playing both titles, the visual nods to the game's ancestral roots cannot be so easily dismissed. Lifted directly from the original film, Sweet Home's story is a surprisingly graphic journey into the realm of the macabre. The plot starts off like any good low-budget horror movie. A documentary crew arrives in an old creepy mansion to shoot some footage on the lost art of the fresco painter Ikaru Mayima. But the would-be filmmakers quickly realize that the house is possessed by some great evil, and unless they can solve the mystery behind the hauntings, they too will join the legion of spirits tethered there. And so begins your journey into the depths of the Mayima Manor. The rest of the plot gradually unfolds as the investigators uncover frescoes, diaries, and blood-scrawled notes left behind by the painter Ikaru. It's funny, but the pacing of the game gives the big reveal greater reverence and emotional impact than the movie even bothered with. In fact, the film itself is largely forgettable B-movie camp. Worth a watch if you've played Capcom's version just to gain a backstory for the characters and to pick out the scenes which directly inspired the game. But as a movie, it's just not worth seeing first. You'll only spoil the mystery. Sweet Home the game, however, mixes part RPG mechanics and part adventure puzzle solving with a whole lot of survival horror to create an absolute masterpiece of digital art. Every gameplay mechanic is specifically chosen to provoke a feeling of dread and to remind the player that their party members are nothing more than squishy mortal meat sacks. Healing items are few and finite, deaths are permanent, and the hazards many. In order to survive the trials of the house, you'll need to switch control between characters and teams in order to pick up and use items. You can't create a team with more than 3 characters, and each character carries a key item necessary to progress through the house's myriad of obstacles. Emi's key can unlock most doors, Taro's camera reveals clues hidden within Ikaru's frescoes, and Asuka's healing kit cures lethal status effects. Akiko's vacuum clears away debris from the halls and dust from the dirty murals, and Kazuo's lighter can burn down barriers and light candles. In addition to these innate abilities, you'll pick up additional items to assist your characters in their investigation. Inventory space is extremely limited. Each character can only carry 2 items, and it's not always apparent which you'll need to progress. So not only can you expect to occasionally backtrack through the house, this also means that if a character dies, you're doubly screwed. Like I mentioned before, there is absolutely no resurrection in this game. Should a character fall prey to any of the numerous horrors out to kill them, they're gone for good, and with them goes 2 precious inventory slots. 3 actually, because someone else will have to carry around an item that replaces the dead character's special ability. The inventory system may sound tedious, but its limitations prevent the player from ever truly feeling comfortable. Magic in the game is reserved for opening passages. There's no healing spells, and you won't be walking around with a stash of medicinal tonics or always have the item handy that completely negates the negative effects of a trap. This maintains a feeling of uneasiness through the game while forcing the player to make strategic sacrifices. Hallmarks of any good survival horror title. While you run around the manor hunting for clues and solving puzzles, the encounters are resolved in a true RPG fashion. There's plenty of horrors lurking within the estate. All manner of ghosts and demons are hungry for fresh blood. In a standard RPG, you could tediously grind your way to victory, but because healing items in Sweet Home are scarce, every encounter is a small step closer to your likely demise. Just another clever mechanic that reminds the player the danger their party is truly facing. Teams engaged with an enemy can pause the battle to call for help, at which point you can select another group of characters to bring to the fight. This is both useful for ganging up on tough enemies, maximizing your experience gains, and for safely navigating weaker allies through the treacherous locations. Exploration is a huge element of Sweet Home's gameplay. Yes, you're always on the lookout for clues and equipment, but Mayima Manor is laid out like, well, an admittedly huge house. Locked doors and crumbling debris transforms the grandiose floor plan into a twisting maze. New keys and inventory items will have your characters backtracking through previously explored rooms to unlock new paths. Much like a good Zelda or Metroid title. And hey, did I mention Easter eggs are totally a thing? The visuals are mature for a Famicom game. Despite the 8-bit limitation, there's a delightfully excessive amount of blood and gore. And some of the sprites are all the more shocking when compared with the source material. But despite being some of Capcom's best work, it's regrettably understandable why Sweet Home was never localized for a Western release. The amount of censorship required to pass this game off as wholesome American entertainment would have just utterly ruined the immersion. It's my held-fast opinion that this title is a near-perfect gaming experience. Once I started playing, I was absolutely compelled to see the story through to the end. The challenge of keeping my team alive in spite of the odds against success only made my triumph more rewarding. If you're a fan of the horror genre, or love RPG and adventure games in general, you owe it to yourself to experience Sweet Home firsthand. Give it a play and weigh in on your opinions. I'm looking forward to hearing them. Daria out.